Welcome to this experiential session for dealing with the critical internal monologue. We all have an inner critic, a voice in our head that constantly criticizes us and tells us that we've done this wrong or are thinking that wrong or are not good enough, are not doing enough. This is our very own internal critic, focused 24/7 on criticizing us. However, when this voice becomes too much, it affects us. We start believing that we're not adequate. We start having a low self-worth. Our confidence falls. And so, it's very important to effectively deal with this critic. While this critic has its own place and stops us from making colossal mistakes, like if we want to jump off the roof, this critic will say, "Are you crazy? You're going to die." So this critic is important for self-preservation. Or perhaps if we want to yell out in a crowd and abuse somebody, this critic will criticize us for the thought itself and says, "Shame on you, how can you even think this?" And hence stops us from doing anything extreme. However, this critic is like an overbearing micromanager standing on top of your head 24/7, talking negatively about everything you do. So what we want to do is lessen this voice of critic and generate the voice of the internal coach, which is a more nurturing voice that provides us constructive feedback. Now for this activity, we will be standing in front of a mirror, and what we will be doing is talking to the mirror. Now I will take up the role of my inner critic. I will allow all the thoughts and comments of the critic to come to me, and I will treat this as my self. This mirror self is going to be me, and I am going to be the critic. So the critic will be criticizing me. So let's start. For this, just stand in front of a mirror and look at your image as yourself, and you become your inner critic. Take a deep breath in and start saying out whatever you feel. I'm going to start saying some of the things as a sample for you guys, but you go ahead and talk to your image as your inner critical voice, saying whatever you feel like. You can never do anything right. Why have you done this? Do you really think you can succeed in this activity? You just waste your time the whole day long. Why do you even bother with these thoughts or these ideas? Why do you care? So all these statements were from my inner critic, right? Now what we'll do is close our eyes, take a deep breath in, let it out, take another deep breath in, let it out. What you'll be doing is you will record this inner critic either as a video or an audio, or perhaps even write these statements down after you say them. And then after this breathing activity, you will now listen to these statements again or read these statements again with a very objective mind, as if you were a coach. You were mentoring somebody, you were coaching someone. Would you say these statements to that person? These statements of you can never be productive, you can never get it, you will never be enough, or you always waste your time, why do you even have these thoughts, or why do you care? Will you talk to somebody else as a coach like this? No, right? So what we are going to do is we underline or highlight the words that we would never use as a coach, that are negative and critical and not fair. And now we will replace these sentences from the inner coach. So this time I will become my inner coach, and this image will again be me. The inner coach will talk to me. So I am the inner coach now rather than the critic, and again my image becomes me. So I'm talking to myself as the coach. In this, we will replace all those statements that are critical with constructive feedback. The meaning of the statements or the feedback, the essence can be the same. But what we need to essentially change is the method of communicating, even to ourselves. We always communicate well to others, don't we? But what about ourselves? Why are we so harsh with our own self? Why are we so critical and borderline abusive with our own self? Let's shift these statements into a more constructive feedback for our own self. I'm going to again create a template here for the statements that I made, but feel free to replace your inner critic statements with your inner coach. You have a lot of potential. You can do better. There's so much more you can achieve. You probably are not utilizing your time to the optimum level. You may want to see how many things you can do within this time. Wouldn't you like to include more number of activities in the time that you're doing this single activity? It's really great that you care. It shows that you can empathize with others. But you need to also care about yourself and ensure that others are not taking advantage of you. Do not care about others and forget to care about yourself. You are doing good, and tomorrow you will do better. Compete each day to become better than what you did yesterday. Now, these statements had more or less the same essence, but they were communicated in a positive manner. Did you see the difference? I'm sure you did. The inner critic gave us a feeling of dejection, rejection. We felt like we can't do anything, and it made us feel helpless. But how did the sentences of the inner coach feel like? I'm sure you felt motivated, you felt like you can do more, you felt resourceful. And that is the difference. The difference of being or using the inner critic versus the inner coach. Over a period of time, when we replace this inner critic statements with the coach in a conscious manner, slowly our unconscious also starts talking to us in the manner of the inner coach, with more compassion, with more understanding, and more constructively. Every time you catch yourself cursing yourself or thinking all these negative critical thoughts, or this constant voice going in your head telling you how bad you are, what you've done pathetically, or how you can never be great, take a moment, turn, and let this inner critic vent out. The more we try to negate these thoughts, the more we try to push down these thoughts and say, no, I don't have to think like that, I shouldn't think like that, it will keep coming up. So what we do is, we allow this inner critic to say whatever it wants to say. Just lash it out and then stop, and then replace it with the inner coach, with better statements. Now, this may seem really funny to some of you. Why are we really changing the way our internal monologue is? Well, words have a huge impact on us, our own words and other people's words as well. Our own words are particularly impactful because, as you saw, when we speak to ourselves in the voice of the inner critic, we feel helpless, we feel sad, we feel incapable of really doing anything. But when we speak to ourselves in the voice of the inner coach, we feel resourceful, we feel capable of handling everything. Our words change our thoughts and beliefs. They make us more or less productive. They make us more or less motivated. They can change the entire way you're thinking or you're approaching things. Just a simple thing. Replace the inner critic with your inner coach. I hope this video helps you. Have a great day ahead.